Hey, this is Jeremiah, and James is here too.
What's up?
And James, what do you want to talk about tonight?
We are talking about expectations.
Okay.
More specifically, when you are an ideal teenager / young 20 to when you actually start to have to get real adult life jobs and make decisions and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to talk about kind of the expectation versus what really happens.
Okay. So context for everybody. I'm currently 25, and James, you're 35?
No, 37. Thank you.
37. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize you turned 30. I thought you were still 35. But that doesn't make sense because you were 35 last year.
2 years ago, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, no, I can do that math. But I mean, like you were 35 at some point in 2014, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, you were lying to me about your age the whole time.
Yes.
I didn't know that, but whatever. All right, and I'm about to turn 26, to be fair. So we'll be talking about this from like two different generations. And James, you know I'm not saying that like to pick on you, but just it's important context to point out. James and I grew up in very different cultures, I'd probably say. Like when you were a teenager and I was a teenager were very different times.
Right.
But yeah, so expectations.
Well, we did grow up in the same area, so that is a little bit of an equalizer for both of us.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't actually thought about that when you suggested this. So expectations versus reality. Well, let's say when you were 15, what was life like for you, like on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, I think 15 was very much focused on girls. Honestly.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah. Yep. And so I think maybe around 17 is when I started to actually get, I don't know, cocky about life. And I think that's when you kind of start to build I know more than adults, and I know more than...
Oh, you start getting a little bit of a complex.
Right. I think most kids at that age start to get that because, they're finishing high school, they're thinking about college and their future, so... I think it's easy to kind of get that grandiose, I'm someone important.
Yeah.
I wasn't like flat out like a douchebag about it, but I
know what you mean. I mean, you're kind of mixing with like you're accomplishing things, you're finishing high school, you're going to college and stuff, but you don't yet realize that how like funded by your parents you are or whoever you live with. Like, is that what you mean? Like,
yeah, well, I mean that, and you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's a saying, and so you think you have life figured out. You think you have your personal philosophy figured out. You think you have, you think you have the wisdom of an adult until you actually get to be an adult, and then you're like, wow, I was kind of stupid. I mean, I didn't make a lot of bad choices in high school. I was actually a pretty good kid. Mm-hmm. But still looking back, if I could have just sat down with myself and said, hey, buddy, this is why people turn out this way, or this is why people make these kind of decisions. But yeah, I was definitely, my personality has definitely changed since then. I was an idealist.
Oh, I mean, really?
To some degree, I'm still an idealist, but I hold the realistic expectation now.
What were you idealistic about? Like for you at age 17, what was the next 4 or 5 years going to be?
I mean, ideals about, my future, ideals about people. I think your perspective of people changes when you're younger versus when you get older. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just my outlook with friends was different. I mean, not that I didn't have more rich friendships, but I think now as I'm older, I focus more on the depth of a friendship than I did then.
Were you like a pretty outgoing person?
I was.
So you had lots of friends, but maybe not as many good friends?
I had a core group of friends, but I did have lots of friends, and that was kind of a thing for me, is to make sure to always just be friends with people that, not everybody would be friends with.
Okay.
And I happen to live in a culturally diverse area, so I had, friends of different races, and, I was pretty straight laced as far as like the way I dressed and everything, but I would hang out with the Wiccan people that most people are like, oh my gosh, scary Wiccans. And it's that, to me, that kind of idea, the way you spend your time very freely. The choices, I think they were less deliberate and more, I've got so much to look forward to, bring it all on, Whereas, now as, in my 30s, I have to make choices based on, many things. I make choices of, do I want to spend this much energy into, this kind of friendship? Do I want to spend this much energy in this kind of activity? Do I want to get involved in X, Y, and Z? Can I pay for it? Those are decisions you don't have to make when you are in that it's almost like a newlywed stage. You're like in between being a child and being an adult. Like your hand is, for most people, I mean, not everybody. Some people, I think jump into the hard reality quickly after high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, for those that, get to do the normal experience of going to college and stuff like that and living in a dorm, your hand is held quite a bit more, and it kind of reinforces that idea that, I'm pretty untouchable right now. Life is easy, What about you?
I guess I'd be pretty similar to you. Like when I was 16, 17, I also had a little bit of a complex of like, not like I know more than my parents necessarily, or, say all adults, but that mostly means your parents when you're talking about people you don't, you know more than, or you're better than when you're a teenager. I definitely thought I knew better for me than they did. I always thought my parents were very smart, and I always respected them and their input and stuff, but I always felt like they were kind of out of touch with, me, my struggles and my issues. So when I was 16, 17, honestly, like my biggest stuff was music. I was in a couple different bands for various things. And so I was playing music, whether practice or performing, probably 4 nights a week or 4 days a week. Music was like a really big deal to me. I had really nice gear. Like most of my money I made from my job revolved around music gear and stuff for my car.
Worthy.
and saving. I did save money, but like looking back, I definitely should have saved more. But yeah, like you, I was thinking, oh, well, I'm going off to college. Like, what do I need to save a bunch of money for? Like, you live at college, your expenses are paid. Not that college is free, but like when you're there on a day-to-day basis, once you've paid tuition and everything, it's not like you have to continuously fork over money every week or anything, which of course was not correct because I still had to buy like gas and insurance and food and school supplies and like everything. So rent was covered and a good chunk of my food was covered, but it turns out that's not everything that's involved in life.
So you mean when your friends go out, you actually want to go with them?
Yeah. Well, actually, in college, most of my friends were, hey, let's just go eat at the cafeteria. Like we were kind of like, I was a little bit countercultural in that sense because I was in a rock band. And I did have a little bit of a complex about like preppy people, jocks, and which I was athletic. Like in my early to mid teens, I was very athletic. So I don't know where the complex came from, but like jocks and preppy people and people who liked country music or pop music. Like I did have a little bit of a thing against them. I was like, oh, I play rock music. I like real music, good music. Y'all don't know. And I thought going to college was going to suck because I'd be around so many preppy people. But I mean, obviously
you were.
Well, I was, but you're around people of all different categories. And that was one of the first complexes that broke for me. It was like, oh no, people are just people. Like, and it took years to really come to that realization, but like it initially broke early on. I was like, oh, Well, actually, a lot of these people are really nice. Like people I have nothing in common with, and I don't like their taste in music, which looking back now, it's like, how inconsequential is someone's taste in music? Like how little does that actually matter? But like when I was 17, that was a big deal, you know?
Because, being number one, being in a band, but even at that age, that's kind of a defining thing. Like what kind of music you listen to defines how you dress, defines, a lot of times how you talk. So
I was, black jeans, black band shirts.
You're not much different now.
No, dude.
You rock black jeans a lot.
Oh, well, yeah, because I like simple clothes, but no, trust me, it was different. It was like big Vans and black.
I get it.
Tight jeans.
I can picture it in my head.
Yeah, band shirts. Then I had a skunk stripe. My hair was black, which it's really dark now, so that's not much of a change. But it was actually black, no gray in it, with a skunk stripe on the side. And like music was a big deal to me because like I played music that a lot of people did not enjoy, or not only did not enjoy, they expressly disliked.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a defining thing. Part of my whole countercultural shtick.
Yep.
The whole no one understands me. But yeah, like within probably a year of going to college, I mean, within a week, I had friends that were nothing like me, didn't care about anything I cared about. Like it was really cool. My roommate, my first semester, was not Chris, who he was in my apartment, but we weren't roommates. It was this guy, Josiah, this big dude, like 6'3", bodybuilder, loved sports, like worked as a landscaper, so we had that in common, but was basically into skiing and anything else sports like all he did was go to the gym, go to class, hang out with girls, eat a ton, like that was life. And I quickly realized like, oh, he's actually like a really cool dude, even though we have absolutely nothing to talk about other than just life stuff. And I think that was that was like the first bit of my
like, hey, you go to school here too? In. Cool. All right.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was the first bit of reality setting in of like, oh, hey, people are people. But I really do think it took years to really come to that realization because like even at that time, you were probably the same way. I was like, oh yeah, man, a lot of these people are pretty cool, but not those people. Like people who disagree with me on music and sports choice, those are fine. But people who are in a different political party, people of different like belief systems than me, yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get along. Like, were you the same way?
I'm actually listening to your story. I'm actually very similar in that I am turned off to things that are considered necessarily super culturally popular. I didn't like necessarily the preppiness, and even though I'm dressing up now as an adult, but I didn't like that kind of culture. Yeah, and I was also in a band, but I traveled for the college I was at, and so I kind of had like my little social bubble where I couldn't necessarily be touched by the things that I didn't necessarily like.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
So I felt a little safe in that. It was especially hard being in a dorm with actually two roommates, and being on campus actually felt more odd than being on the road for me.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I had phases of doing like I was in bands before I went to college, and doing phases of like wearing like plaid pants and like a dog chain and.
All right, you're dating yourself now. I'm guessing this was around when, like 2001, 2002?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think maybe the common thread for both of us is that I don't know if I'm assuming for you it's the same thing, but when you don't see genuineness in someone, that it's kind of a turnoff, and so you look at someone who likes commercial music or dresses like a catalog, and you're like, oh, that's so plain, they're not real.
Right. But at the same time, all you're seeing, I think, what I think now is you're seeing that, oh, maybe they just don't care as much about this thing as you.
Right.
do.
No, I mean, it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
After the fact. But at the time, I think that's where the mindset was.
Because at that time, I couldn't possibly, like, I couldn't think why anyone would care how they dressed. Like, what type of loser cares how they dress? And then 2 years later, I realized, oh, people who understand what first impressions are and who actually need to be able to get along with people like in a professional setting. Oh yeah, okay, that actually matters like a ton. You know.
Although it's funny, I was never like, I mean, even though I had the faces, like I still kind of dressed up more so than my peers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I was never super preppy about it. It was always just a little bit different to be unique. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, when you become an adult and you start working with all kinds of people and you meet people from all walks of life, you're like, gosh, what was I thinking? You know?
Yeah, everyone else is probably thinking that too, though. Yeah. Like, I would pity anybody who's so, like, self-absorbed that they can't understand how dumb they were when they were a teenager. And any teenagers listening to this now, like, don't take that too harshly. You're not, like, a total moron. Just when you become an adult,
right
you realize...
now, when you get older, you'll realize you are a total moron, and we're right.
You realize that there was quite a few things that you were completely so off about, and there's no way to explain it as an adult to a teenager, because when I was a teenager, an adult couldn't possibly convince me of the same thing, even though there were numerous adults that told me that. I was like, yeah, whatever. But I think I'm curious if you agree, James. I definitely think it's one of those things where you just have to experience it for yourself. There's no one can convince you that you're an idiot when you're younger. You just kind of have to realize that when you're older.
Yeah, I mean, I have some regrets. Everybody should have some regrets of things they've done. Like, not necessarily like bad regrets, like I, got a girl pregnant when I was like 16 or anything. I mean, like regrets and I wish I hadn't said that to this person, or regrets and I wish I hadn't been this way towards, this. But overall, I think it was, I think it was a good experience. I mean, there's not much I could change.
Right.
Because.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. What you have to change?
I want to park on that for a second. No, what you just said really rang true. I wish I'd realized right before I went to college how much my relationships with all of my friends were going to change. I knew one or two people who were going to the same college as me. So like, because I was going to one in my state, the odds worked out. I knew some people who were going to be going there. So it's not like I didn't know anybody. And my girlfriend at the time wife now, was also going to the same college. So it's not like I wasn't going to know people, but like all the friends I grew up with, back home, like my strong friend group from ages 13 to 17. Mm-hmm. I wish, people did tell me this. I just didn't listen because they were adults. I wish someone had gotten through to me about how I shouldn't take for granted those last couple months, because it was never going to be like that again.
Right.
And it was true. My first break, I came home from school, and my best friend of like the past 4 or 5 years, we went out to get some dinner. And, they say like if you're really good friends with somebody, you cannot see them for a while and nothing changes. But it was totally different. Because he'd stayed behind, so he'd found new friends. Or different people in the friend group who hadn't gone to college. They had become closer. He had different stories. I had different experiences. And as teenagers, we still sucked at communicating all that stuff. And it just felt like we were starting to drift apart already. But I didn't believe anybody. Like I thought that last summer, I was like, this is the best. This is the greatest. Like, and I wish someone had told me. Fortunately, my band, we did play a farewell show like 2 weeks before we left for college. So that was one nice, like, big, crazy lead up to everyone leaving thing. Actually, it was maybe like only a week because one guy had to go a little early. But like, we decided to record an EP that week, the week of the show. So like every day when I got off work, I drove home, and then the guys were waiting in the basement, and we would like track one person at a time. And we like recorded, mixed, and released the EP that Thursday at the show.
Which will soon be available for Patreon.
I'm just kidding. Never. They're all in a hole somewhere in the desert. But, so we did have that one nice big last show, which for someone who played music a lot, that meant a big deal. Mm-hmm. Like we got to go out on top. We weren't popular, but in our little community, we were kind of popular. Mm-hmm. So that was like a really nice feeling. But I wish someone had convinced me that this is actually more significant than you think it is, because this is never going to happen again like this.
I don't know about you, but like, I don't know did you feel this way? Like when you would leave and then come back on a break, things would feel less and less familiar to you. Yep. I mean, not necessarily like, oh, where am I? But like you just didn't feel like you fit in as well. Like when you see friends, I mean, kind of along the lines you're saying, when you see a group of friends that you've always hung out with, and then you kind of try to reintegrate, you then kind of realize I've moved on a little bit. Not necessarily I'm pushing myself away from them, but my personality's changed a little bit because when you go away to college, I mean, you do go through some major shifts in your philosophy, your personality, and obviously your level of responsibility. So when you go back and you hang out with friends, you know, for me, there's always that common thread of, you know, say we had the same humor or we had the same interests. That thread's always going to be there, but it's that personal level that it feels like you're in the same room, but you're not actually really, really connecting. And I feel like after a while, I mean, you know, doing it for a few years, like you start to realize that, you know, that's it. You know, I'll still have these friends, you know, I'll keep them on Facebook. I'll see them when I go home. But, you know, for a lot of people, that's it. I mean, you don't go back to those high school friendships almost ever, unless you really keep it up while you're at college.
I'd say I'm still friends with most of those people, but like you said, the relationship is not really there like it was.
I mean, they're not your go-to people now. When you think of
exactly,
I need to talk to somebody about this, or I want to hang out. You know, the first thought of if you could hang out with somebody, is it that group of people who you've known for your whole life, or is it the people you've now built something new with?
Yeah. No, that was definitely true. You know, I would try to hang out with them on break and stuff, but it was always fun, but it wasn't like the good old days, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'd like go to my best friend's house, pick him up for band practice. We'd get food, cruise around, complain about how much we hated the small town we lived in because there was nothing to do. Play music, talk about cars, drive too fast, and go home and like do it again tomorrow. Okay, you know, and it was just never like that ever again. I mean, not trying to make it sound like life is like horrible now. I think overall life's way better. But
no. I mean, yeah, no, I definitely agree.
But,
I mean,
but certain aspects, like you don't really appreciate it. My expectation, I guess, using our theme of expectations versus reality, my expectation was, well, we're too good friends. Like we're too good of friends to not be close. We're going to be close, and that's not really true.
I mean, it's not always the case. That's not. I mean, some people you'll always be friends with. If you stick with them in college, like stay talking to them, I don't see that as being a problem. But, you know, eventually they're going to start making new friends. I mean, they have to. And you make new friends, and your activity partner is now someone else, and they have a new activity partner. So it's almost like seeing an ex-girlfriend, and it's like, oh, you've moved on with your boyfriend. You actually do things with your boyfriend. Wow.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I expected you to just wait for me forever.
No, yeah, definitely. I came home, I was thinking like, oh, it'll just be the same. You know, I'll just go see all the same people. It's like, no, actually, someone got a job somewhere else, or someone moved away, or someone's so-and-so's dating so-and-so, which you never thought was remotely possible. And like enough stuff changes, or like, oh, yeah, I really wasn't here. Like, did you feel like life back home paused when you went to college, and you just come home and hit unpause and everything would be cool?
I did it first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because like trying to jump into, you know, a social situation, like nothing's changed. Like it felt a little disjointed after a while. Like more and more, I was like, this feels weird. I mean, I like I said, I still get along with a lot of the people I knew, but after a while, you know, another thing for me is growing up in that area. Like there's this dichotomy of it growing and getting older at the same time. Like new buildings would show up, new shopping centers, new like downtownish areas type things. It's like, wow, you know, I don't even recognize this place anymore. And then the other places that are familiar start to look more and more run down. And so I think that was also part of the taint of, I don't know, just my view of going back home.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I think that it made me feel a little even more disconnected.
Yeah, which I think is where that saying "you can never go home again" comes from. Because like I can always go home. I mean, I know everyone's not as fortunate as me, so I'm not trying to play it off lightly. But like, I have parents who love me, and you know, I have the home I grew up in that I can go back to visit and everything. Like I try to do that every couple weeks. Like there is home, but it's not home anymore.
Right.
And I think that's where that saying comes from, is once you leave, coming back is never really the same, no matter what else happens, just you being gone.
Yeah, it's funny. It sounds like a little weird, but your safe place goes with you.
Yep. Yeah, my safe place became my dorm room once I got it customized exactly the way I wanted, and I got a good friend group and stuff. Like
when you'd go home, did you kind of ever find yourself missing, just wanting to be back in your dorm, in your own bed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, kind of my anchoring points were my pillow. It sounds dumb, but my pillow, my comforter, because it was one my great grandmother had made for me. So my pillow, my comforter, and my computer.
Mm-hmm. I can see where that's a problem for you.
Well,
why is it so slow?
But yeah, for me, that was just like, it didn't feel like home. I think it was mostly my bed. It didn't feel like home unless I was sleeping on my pillow with my blanket, you know, which sounds so dumb, but it definitely, that's what it felt like.
Do you feel like you spent a lot of time trying to recreate experiences?
Well, I mean, I tried to start a band first semester of college, if that tells you anything. It did not go well. Because for me, it was such a huge integral part of my life. Like I couldn't imagine not doing it. In some instances, yes, but then the friends I made in college were so different from the friends I had back home that I missed the friends back home, but I didn't feel like I was trying to replace those people because the friends I had now were so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say I was trying to recreate stuff, except for the stuff I thought was really important to me. I was definitely still trying to do that. So I was trying to play music as much as possible, and trying to basically still trying to be into the scene.
In the scene.
Yeah, which the scene was a big thing when I was a teenager. I guess that would have been you when you were in your mid-20s, and it probably all looked stupid, but it mattered to me. Yeah.
But how about as an adult? Do you find yourself wanting to revisit those experiences from when you were younger, even in college?
In some instances, like I was visiting, one of my brothers is in the military, and he lives like 4 hours away from me, and last September and this September, me and my other brother and a good friend, mutual friend of ours, all went down to visit my brothers in the military and his wife and their kid. And when we went down last year, it just kind of worked out this way. We were like, hey, want to play Smash Brothers? Someone just suggested it because he had a Wii, and we popped it in. And then like 5 minutes in, I realized we're all sitting on the floor with GameCube controllers playing Smash Brothers together.
I
was like, oh, we haven't done this in like 6 years. And so I was thinking quickly enough, I took a quick picture and sent it to my mom, and she pretty much had a breakdown of like, that's every mother's dream, I think, is for their children to be getting along as capable adults. But yeah, like, So when we were home, certain friends and I want to go to this restaurant we always went to get food. I guess if you're thinking about stuff like that, yeah, like we went to the same restaurant to get food, and took some of the same drives and had some of the same arguments about which guitarist and which band was better. But after a while, it definitely felt like, like you're trying too hard.
Right.
Do you think it's the same thing for you? Like after a while, it felt like, I'm still talking about this stuff, but I don't care about it like I used to.
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point where you're like, that joke is just, it's actually finally gotten old.
Yeah, or man, this person, they're actually kind of immature.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of tired of being around them.
But for me, since I traveled so much in college, I still have that that romantic desire to be on the road. That just because it was such a big part of who I was. And, as an adult, it's different because you don't get a chance to, you have responsibilities. You don't get to hop in a car and take a road trip.
Well, you can.
All the time. You can.
The adult you are can't.
Right. The adult I am. The adult with
your reality
children.
Can't. Yeah. Would you say that's the biggest limiting factor?
No, it's not actually. The biggest limiting factor is getting every other adult on board to do it, I think.
Yeah. And, how did we do that road trip last year? How did that just work out?
It just happened. And I've been begging Joel, dude, let's do another road trip. Let's do another road trip. Let's do another road trip. Ever since.
I'll tell you what, he's swamped with Norman stuff. How about you and I do that?
Let's go to a car show.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, we can safely assume Dave and Joel won't care about that.
Unless they can take a train.
But I more meant, the two of us, sure. But I was thinking we could we could plan it and then get the other guys on board so that, because like Joel's so busy with Norman stuff, I don't expect him to be available to plan anything like that. And then Dave is not normally the take charge and plan everything for the whole group guy.
Right. Yeah, let's figure something out.
Yeah, we'll talk about it off air. But I think a car show would be a good first one. But sorry, go ahead.
My point being that one thing is the reality versus, or the expectation versus reality, is you do still have the chance to make some of it happen. Your expectations, but it takes extra work. But you shouldn't limit yourself to that kind of stuff you do when you're a kid. When you're an adult, you don't do that. You go fishing and you go to ski lodges and stuff. Definitely say be the age you want to be. That doesn't mean don't be responsible, but
right.
There's no limiting factor to say this is a 20-year-old activity and this is a 40-year-old activity or whatever. But
we're capable adults who play video games, so I think we're probably proof of that.
Pretty much immature. So I'm happy to accept that. I have a lot of toys because I have kids, but if I didn't have kids, I might have some of them still.
Yeah.
But yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about was the mentality when you're younger versus when you start to get older. Things change. Okay. Yeah, your beliefs change a lot of times. Not everybody it's drastic, but for some people they do a complete shift. Whether it be religious, whether it be political, whether it be just your general outlook on life, like your personality temperament completely can shift. Did any of that happen for you? You don't have to go too specific, but just talk about like what your expectation was for you, what you would be as an adult versus now as an adult.
Well, that I guess isn't a ton different because all I really thought was I'll be doing something creative.
I guess the expectation of who you were going to be as a person, not what you would do with your life. Just, I expect that I'm never going to, change my opinion on this. I expect that I'm never going to not be this or, blah, blah, blah.
I would say especially politically, I did pretty much 180-degree flips on a ton of stuff. Mostly because I don't think politically I wasn't like indoctrinated or anything. I just assumed that the experience I had growing up and my belief system growing up was fairly standard, and I thought anyone who disagreed with it must just be dumb,
right?
Or ignorant, not dumb, but ignorant, because to me it was so blindingly obvious growing up how things should be. But when I grew up, I realized, oh no, I wasn't wrong, but that mostly applied to my situation, not everybody. Right. So like I was spot on about a lot of things about my life, but
your spectrum of what you were going to actually face was very, very, very narrow compared to what you. You became an adult. You started paying taxes. You started like having to think about laws. You had to think about voting. you had to actually really, I mean, not everybody does this, but if you actually give two craps, you do think about why you believe that, and why you would vote for this or why you would vote for that, why you think this is a stupid law, why you think something be set up this way or that way. So yeah, it's that really, when you're a kid, you only have so many things to ever worry about. But man, when you get smacked in the face with reality, not that it's bad, but it's like, oh, that's why they're talking about that.
Yeah, which is, I think, a good thing that college does, is it kind of like, it's like training wheels for actually becoming an adult. I was a pretty responsible teenager, according to most adults who told me that, which I guess is a little bit of a skewing of the data. But, I worked almost full time. I went to community college. I was, saving money. I had different responsibilities, things I was in charge of, stuff like that. So like, I definitely was a little bit cocky going into college, thinking like, man, like I'm so much more prepared than most of my peers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, harsh reality hit like week one, where like it was all I could accomplish one day, to drive to one part of campus, find the office where there were parking passes, get the parking pass, which involved paperwork, figure out, then go back to the dorm, figure out what type of laundry detergent I needed, what type of dishwashing detergent was correct for our dishwasher, make a list of everything we were missing, go out, buy that, come back. And like, it was like,
realize you missed 5-10 things.
Yeah. I thought like, how could I suck this bad at this? Cause like I've been doing chores my entire life. Like I wasn't brought up on a silver spoon. Like I've been cutting grass, doing dishes, laundry for years, but I was doing a certain type of thing. I was used to our clothes washer and our dishwasher and my family's method of doing things. So I encountered a radically different system. It sounds petty, but like it was a shift. And then, I got that under control. And then the next week classes actually started. So it was all I could do to get to class and figure out what the heck was going on, the whole time thinking like, I was in community college. Like, how could this be that different? And it completely is. And then meeting new people constantly. Mm-hmm. So I haven't tried to figure out like, okay, is that someone I need to know? Like, do I need to make friends with this person, or is like just some random person in my class, or like, just trying to figure out like, okay, I've met 150 people this week. Now what? And then, so like all that, but it was good because I went through all that, because then in between my second and last year of college, I was there for 3 years. So between my second and third year, I did an internship, and I had to find it myself, which I found it through a friend of a friend. Right. So, but I had to get my own internship, and then
you had to get all the paperwork together. You had to
I had to go see the office.
Was going to work.
But the cold reality of, oh, this is life, hit me when we actually moved to Indiana, me and my roommate, Chris, because we were both going to do an internship at the same place. And, and we got there, and our apartment that we were supposed to be staying in wasn't ready, which we'd found through a friend. And it was like the filthiest thing I'd ever seen.
Oh my.
And neither of us had a job. I just had like $600 in savings. And we had to find a job before that money ran out. Like, we had an internship, but it was a free internship because we're slaves. So like all that just happening all at the same time, and like the stress levels were definitely high. And that was like a big old cold slap of reality. Like, oh, this stuff that you thought was important, like, oh, which of these people do I need to make friends with? And what are we doing tonight for dinner? Like, takes a back seat to, are you doing anything today besides looking for a job? Because if you are, you're wasting time. Like, it was that whole thing. And
I can't have fun like in the dorm.
Exactly. It was like, no, that's not why you're here this summer. You are here to work. And I mean, we bootstrapped it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if have I told you stories about our living situation.
I don't know.
It's the type of crappy that you're glad that you went through later, because like, it's not dangerous crappy. It's just crappy. And it's really funny to talk about later. Mm-hmm. But like, we were staying in a 1-car garage that was converted into an apartment. Nice. But I mean, it was fully converted. It had siding, sheetrock, everything. Like, it was just started out as a 1-car garage. But there were 50 to 60 dog urine stains on the carpet from the previous tenant who had just skipped out. He's a 50-year-old man, skipped out the day we were supposed to move in. Didn't clean anything. And the landlord didn't properly check it out. So we negotiated for the landlord to take $100 off the rent because it was going to be $400 a month, which in Indiana is actually pretty normal. For anyone's like, that's so cheap. Have you lived in Indiana? It's horrible. So we spent like the next week, every time after work, we would drive 30 minutes to this apartment when we got off our internships, and we would clean it like a steam cleaner, and we rented a shampooer. Ugh. And we just soap and water and elbow grease. Like the fridge was completely molded. Oh. Not all of the plumbing, like some of it was clogged up. The bathroom was just yellow. You can imagine why. Mm-hmm. A friend we made who was helping us clean it, he was like helping steam clean the bathroom, and he kept going outside to throw up because it was liquefying all this like petrified urine. But like once we got it all clean, it was really just like a couple rooms. Like our desks were tables we got at a yard sale. I sat in a recliner, like wedged up against the desk, and we turned my computer monitor sideways to use as a TV. And like all we had to do, we had our computers. So we would come home from work. I mean, we couldn't bring anything. We packed everything in my Beamer. So all our clothes, computers, living supplies for an entire summer were in one car, which is hard to do with two people.
If you need, it's hard to do with one person.
Yeah. So like our clothes hung from hangers above us while we slept, like strung across, the room, tiny little room we were sleeping in. And our air mattresses had like a foot between them, and I could touch my feet and my head could each touch a wall. My air mattress had a leak. So every morning I woke up on the floor and then just had to pump it up before bed the next day.
Was there ever a point where you're just like, screw this? Why am I living like this?
Yes. And then I was like, well, what's the alternative? All right, guess I'm sleeping on the floor again. Our last week, we actually left a day early. That's how sick of it we were. We were like, we just want to go home. Mm-hmm. We left at like 5:30 in the morning or something, 6 in the morning. Like we couldn't possibly leave any sooner. But yeah, towards the end, we were just like, we stuck to the plan. We ate on about $20 a week. Which sounds, I know, it sounds insane to say now. I got a job at a warehouse, and I was making maybe $250 a week because I could only work part-time because of my internship. Mm-hmm. So maybe like $250 a week.
Which sounds decent if you think rent's $400, but
yeah,
you have gas,
yeah.
Your car was paid off, right?
Yeah, I bought my car outright when I was 16. Right. It was an old Beamer for anyone like, oh man, it's not that nice. Don't worry. But
did it go pretty quick though? Like the money? Were you able to save any during that time? Or
would I have been able to save any? Yes. Did I buy computer parts? Yes. I did a graphics card upgrade.
Wait a minute.
And a memory upgrade in one.
You lived off $20 a week. Wait, was that each person, right?
No.
Are you kidding?
Each of us bought some of our own things, so it was probably closer to like. It was probably $30 a week for both of us because each of us bought like a couple luxury items. But yeah, so it would be $30.
How much was your video card?
It was $200. I got a rating on $48.90.
How many months could you have lived off of that?
We could have eaten better, but actually I didn't think it was all that bad because we ate like this big pasta dish we came up with that was basically sausage and vegetables and pasta, and that's dirt cheap to make. And we would just make it make a ton of it. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't that bad. Like we didn't eat a lot of variety, but we ate. We were fine. But yes, I upgraded to 8 gigs of RAM, got a Western Digital Velociraptor.
Which at the time, those were pretty expensive.
Oh yeah, those were like kids before there were SSDs, they were Velociraptors. I think it was a 76 gig.
Oh my gosh.
And 8 gigs of RAM and a 4890. So yeah, I probably could have spent money on other stuff, but we were okay. I sold my cell phone the first month for rent money because my paychecks weren't there yet, But by the end, it was fine. I had enough gas money to get home. My clutch in my car broke. The clutch plate physically broke. So I drove back from Indiana to the East Coast with a broken clutch plate, which if you might know what that's like, but to anyone who doesn't drive a manual transmission, that means you have to pretty exactly match the RPMs in the engine to be able to shift. And there's a lot of grinding noises, and sometimes the car just won't shift. But we got home.
You gotta get into like a dance groove when you're doing it. It just has to feel right when you pull that back.
Not to be too snobby, but at that point, like I was very in tune with my car.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that hard once I got the hang of it. Also, once you're on the interstate cruising in fifth gear, like, it doesn't matter. But I think I'm trying to tie all that back to expectations versus reality that was a big thing of, all right, I know what an adult's going to be like. And then when cold reality hit of, no, you need a job and a place to stay and things aren't working out the way you thought they were going to. So you got to think on the fly. By the way, rent is still going to be due and you need money to get food and put gas in the car all at the same time. And that was very much holy crap, I'm not ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm an incredibly stubborn person. So while I probably made plenty of stupid decisions that summer, we did last the entire summer and we did make it home.
And most people would have packed up maybe the first week and just said, this isn't going to work out. Or
I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to make us sound like we were that tough. Most people probably would have asked for guidance and more things, which I definitely could have done differently. I got the whole bootstrapping mentality of calling home is a failure. So, calling home for help is a failure. So I probably should have asked for advice on things more than I did. But yeah, that was like, I guess by the time I came back from that summer, that was a big confidence boost of, all right, I can do this now. Like getting back to college felt like, oh, lap of luxury right here. Like,
yeah,
big deal. So yeah,
I actually went away to college. I mean, I went to community college first and then I went away to college, 10 hours away, 12 hours away. Which was very eye-opening to me. Like I had an amazing group of friends that I met there, and it was a very close group. But that was the first time I've ever had to just completely just put all my comforts, my safeties just out of the picture. And, even though I had a dorm, I had a place to live and I had food to eat because I had, a cafeteria, it was different because no one was making decisions for me other than, rules. But so that was a little bit not a wake up call, but just kind of like one of the first times I got to get a little taste of adulthood. And, my story is such that I got to taste adulthood probably earlier than most.
What happened?
Just when my parents divorced, and I lived with my dad, and I kind of had to raise my sister when she was younger. Like just because he would do work and I'd come home in the afternoons and I'd be with her, and she was, she's quite a bit younger than me, so I don't know. I mean, learning how to do certain things for myself, was a thing. And then when I was 18. My dad actually lost his house, and he made no preparations for me or my sister. She ended up going with my mom, and I literally didn't have it. I mean, I had someone to like make sure I had somewhere to go.
Right.
But it wasn't it wasn't a comforting feeling. And that was a lot of the reason why I went away to college, just to kind of put baggage behind me and to, kind of reset my mind a little bit. Yeah, just to have a fresh outlook, I think. But yeah, that time away, like being able to explore a new city, meeting people from different colleges. I ended up dating a girl that I walked up to in Walmart and started talking to.
Wow, you had a lot of game.
I had a lot of confidence back then. It's so weird. Actually, she was with her mom, and I just went up and started talking to them both. And we started dating.
Like on the spot?
I invited her to go somewhere on the spot. And
Jeez,
she went.
Dude.
And so I think that was the first like real step into like being an adult, but being an adult away from any of the safety nets that I had, which was kind of cool. I feel like I had more safety nets when I went to the college we went to, just because it was significantly bigger. I mean, there were a lot of different structures set in place to be able to figure stuff out. Although dealing with financial aid and dealing with the registrar and stuff like that, that was never something I enjoyed doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't imagine doing it now as an adult where I have way less patience for incompetence.
Well, and you can know better when you're being taken advantage of, when as a kid you're just like, oh, what are these people say, go here and wait in line. All right, I guess I'm going to go do that.
I guess that's the end of it, because you said that's it.
Yeah, you said I can't do it, so, well, they're an adult.
As an adult, you're like, no, it says right here that da-da-da-da.
As an adult, well, not everyone's like this, but I think you and I are both like this. As an adult, you're like, no, everything's negotiable.
Yeah.
You might think that's how it is, but we're going to talk about it.
I don't know if you have a hard time with this. I have a hard time letting things go as an adult. I don't think it's at all. I think it's just my personality. I think it's a personality thing.
Letting what
letting
go?
Letting little things go. Like if someone says something that's just not right, mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't need to get into this. And the more they talk about, I'm going to correct them. I don't know why, but I'm going to hop in here and correct them.
I used to be more like that. I think I'm a little bit less like it now, just because I just got tired of arguing with people who I wasn't going to change my mind, because I was right, of course.
I mean, but I don't mean situations of social, personal. I mean,
okay.
Now if you go to a business and you want to buy something and they advertise something as this, mm-hmm. and they explain it, well, this means this, I'm more inclined to say, well, actually, no, that doesn't mean that. This is what this says. If you read this, it says this. So actually it means this. I mean, things that I could just walk away from. I'm like, you know what? I've earned the right as an adult to
talk about it with you.
To be respected enough to not treat me like I don't understand.
I'm definitely like that, dealing with customer support people, customer service people. I'm not, now I pride myself, I am never rude. I am never condescending, because I know that job has to suck a lot of days. So I do my absolute best to treat them with respect and kindness and everything else. But when they're just clearly not giving a crap, I do patiently escalate talking about the issue, whoever I need to talk to. And again, I'm very nice about it. I understand if you can't do anything about this, I totally get it. If you can point me in the right direction, I'll stop bothering you, which is not just a tactic. It's important. If people feel like you're not attacking them, you're just irritated with a problem, they're more likely to help you want to fix the problem than if they feel like you're mad at them for something they can't do anything about, or they don't care to do anything about. So I'm very much, when it comes to customer service stuff, I will get my way one way or the other, but I will always make sure to be as respectful as possible and kind as possible, because I know that job sucks. But when it comes to stuff in stores, if I go in there and they're like, oh, this thing we advertise is like this, it's totally not like that. I guess I'm different from you. I'm like, I'm out. I've wasted enough time. I'm gone. And I just don't really think about it anymore. I guess I give up pretty quick on stuff like that. If it's not something that's incredibly important, mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, wasted enough of my day already. I'm out. Which I guess you're different. You're more like, no. You said it was supposed to be like this, and it's not. So we're going to talk about it. Would you say?
I'm a rule follower.
Okay.
I like rules, although I don't want to get too political, but I don't necessarily like too many rules.
Well, I think we're saying structure. I like things to be structured. If the structure has some freedom in it, that's fine. But I want someone to have a plan. Would you say that's the same way?
Yeah, but I mean, if you say that something is going to be like this, I have the expectation it's going to be like this. And so when I when I approach it to be like this and it's not like that, that's where I'm like, no. Let's look at this.
Yeah.
And so when I drive, I speed, but I like people to have some order. I don't like people cutting off. I don't like people following too closely. I don't like, people trying to get around people to, people wait to the absolute last second to
Yeah.
Like when they're getting on from an on-ramp and they wait till like the very last second to pass that one last car that slows everybody down. That kind of stuff bugs me. That's what I mean by order.
Yeah, I'm the same way on that.
So,
well, yeah, everything, like, guys, this would be so much, like, everyone would get what they wanted if y'all would just, like, settle down and do what you're supposed to do. I mean, I guess that's what you're thinking, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we set the rules for, a reason. Just realize it's something you got to deal with.
Yeah, and then unless you're literally on fire right now, it's not that big a deal. Just tone it down.
But I think, I held a lot of beliefs when I was, a teenager in my early 20s that, for me, it was never a fast process of change. I mean, every once in a while, life comes up with, scenarios that cause like that just quick, change in paradigm or whatever. But I think for most people, it's as you get older, you start gathering not necessarily more information, because you have the same information a lot of times at your access as a teenager. But as you start to become more empathetic towards other viewpoints, or start to try to rationalize, do I really believe this? Do I really think this should work this way? Those little chinks in the armor start coming out, and you start, eventually you're wearing a new outfit.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I agree the same way. Like, if someone has an opinion that I don't understand, I try to understand it. But, like, I can respect totally disagreeing with somebody if they believe what they do for a good reason. Like, if it's true to them, and they're being genuine about it, then I'm cool with a lot of stuff. But I do constantly feel that need to, like, challenge a little bit. Like, what, okay, I disagree with what you believe, and it's okay if you believe it, but why exactly do you think this? Like, can you back up what you're saying? Because, I want to respect you as a person, and I can't do that if you think something really stupid and don't know why you think it. But again, I always try to be very, very nice about it. And I guess we're on a little bit different sides of the spectrum. I'm probably quicker to drop stuff and be like, whatever, and just brush stuff off, which probably means I miss out on a lot. But
well, see, I try to stay friends with anybody I talk to about anything that gets serious, like about what makes them who they are. Mm-hmm. But I think I don't know, maybe more so inclined than you to ask questions that most people won't ask because they're afraid to cause that strife. Mm-hmm. I mean, just me and you talking, I just kind of flat out said, hey, so by the way, what do you da-da-da-da-da?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I remember. I know what you're talking about.
I was like, maybe I shouldn't ask him, but I'm just going to ask him anyway because I want to know. Which has been a good thing, because then, it's opened up a lot of dialogue between us to be able to talk about, different aspects of who we are. But tying it back to what we're talking about, when you're young, I think when you're younger, you do have the expectation that people are the way they are, like almost in black and white. Uh-huh. Like this person is this, so they're, I can't think. This person is a northerner, so they're, obviously going to be rude and da-da-da. This person's a southerner, so they're going to be slow talking and, less intelligent. And then when you get older, you actually start spending time getting to know people. You start to see those shades of gray in between. Maybe the person from the north only seems rude because they speak a little faster or speak a little bit more punchy. But in reality, they're like a really, really good, warm person. Same thing with the person in the South. Maybe they have just an accent that just rubs you wrong. You think, makes them sound less intelligent, but really they're brilliant. And so, as you're an adult, you start you kind of have to figure out again how to have conversations, I think. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out how to get to know people in a different way than you do when you're a kid, because when you're a kid, everything you do revolves around shared activity. When you're in high school, It's either shared classes, it's either shared sports teams you're on, or shared, if you're in like band or chorus or, drama club or something. You have that binding thing. When you become an adult, I mean, you might have people at the same job, but there's only so much you can talk about. Oh, I hate my job. You actually have to, at some point, get to know people. And when you start to get to know people, you kind of learn. I think it becomes a little bit richer than, when you're younger. I mean, the maturity factor obviously plays a big role in that. But then as you get older, you start to see more on how people tick. Especially like, I think of when I was in high school and I was in chorus in high school, my senior year, and we had a TA. I don't know if she's a TA or like an intern. But she wasn't that much older. Like she was like maybe 24-ish, like fresh out of college. Mm-hmm. But you could already see some of that like jadedness that you kind of get. Not necessarily. I mean, I say jaded. I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. But like you kind of see that different outlook on life, that more mature outlook on life.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, why are you like that? I mean, why don't you just do this? Why don't you? I mean, just that speaking that ideal. He's like, well, life, da 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 da. And I get it. I look back at that and I'm like, I know exactly what she was talking about. I know exactly how she felt when she was saying that to me, who was saying that to her through my ignorance.
Yeah.
So.
No. Yep. I totally agree with what you're saying.
I had one little last question I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
If you could talk to your former self right now, if you could sit down. I mean, not in a way that's going to like mess up your future, or like you wouldn't marry your wife and, have your job, whatever. But you could, if even for just a second, just make them aware and then they forget, just to get it out. What would you say to your former self?
I don't want to just give like a super quick answer. Think about it for a second.
I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I would, number one, a lot of what you said about, friendships, just don't have expectations for it to be the same way when you get back. I mean, it's a shame, but it's just a reality. I mean, just accept the place that you're going to move to, and accept the people you're going to be with, and accept the way that, friendships are going to mold and kind of like shift around like amoeba. I think I would tell myself to not. I said a lot of I will never when I was a teenager.
Yep.
I would say, you don't know Jack. I mean, you're pretty smart. You know a lot of things, but you don't know a lot of things. And I would say, take some time to maybe understand everything. Don't just understand what already confirms what you believe about this or that. Take some time to understand the full spectrum of people's different political opinions, religious opinions, different cultural, things. And so, yeah, and I think I would probably say I'd probably just say go to a state college and save some money.
Yeah, I guess I'll start there with our common ground. I would have said the same thing. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, my college was paid for, so I can't complain as much.
Right.
It actually worked out really well. My dad built his business. He bought a parcel of land in a cheap county. Like, it wasn't like a super desirable chunk of land. It just was what he wanted. And it was like a 2.5 acres or something. And he only needed really like the front 1.5 acres. So that's the area he cleared and used and everything. And like 7-8 years later, the fire department came to him and said, we have a grant to buy land to build another like fire station or fire and rescue station here. We've surveyed this little county. the distances away from stuff and whatever else. And the back part of your land is exactly what we want. How much do you want for it? And he very quickly was like, well, my kids are going to college. Like he's a savvy enough guy. I mean, he didn't like try to gouge them or anything, but he definitely found out, like talked to some pros and figured out what should he realistically ask for the land, and asked it, and they gave it to him, and he had like a nice, $70,000-$80,000 he got to just stick in the bank. And that was very, very nice for all the kids that were going to be going to college. Mm-hmm. Now, me getting out of college with no debt didn't end up mattering that much, because I got married, and my wife, literally her entire education was on student loans. So, it probably evened out about the same. But
so maybe you talked to her former self.
But no, I think what I would have done was I'd go back to when I was like the year and a half before I left for school, and I would, I wouldn't take anything back about the music and all the stuff I was doing. I would probably tell myself, these 4 people, these 4 or 5 people, you need to sit down with them and talk to them before you go. Like, this is assuming I have, the clairvoyance of hindsight. Sit down and go, this is it. Like, no matter what you might think, how close you think you are, this is really it. Whether or not you ever talk to them again, this is it for the friendship that you're used to. So enjoy it while it lasts, and then respectfully let it go when it's gone. And I would have gone back to when, I guess about 11 months before I left for college, when my cousin died. And I would have told myself, or I guess I would tell myself, we're talking hypothetically here in case they invent time machines. I would tell myself to not bottle up so much, mm-hmm. and reach out to my family more. And not try to just stubborn my way through it, which is was my default reaction to most things. And then I guess the last thing would have been, I should have thought a little longer and harder about my career plans at the time, because there weren't really any solid career plans. I was definitely one of those, I kind of want to do this. I'll go to college. We'll see what looks good. Mm-hmm. Which is like a really expensive way to figure out what you want to do with your life. $25,000 a year.
I changed my major, so
yeah, no, I changed mine too. But like, that's a really expensive way to figure out what you want to do, right, is when you're paying that much money. Like, I could have stayed at home and figured it out then, but I might not have. To be honest, I didn't even really know my profession was a thing when I went to college. So, but yeah, it mostly would have been relationships. I'd go back in time and tell myself, like, you don't think it's going to change, but literally all of this is going to change, and it's never going to be like this again. I have a closing story to ping off that, and then I guess we probably should wrap it down. Yep. Did I tell you about the friend I got to see when I was in New York this past winter?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so growing up in the first neighborhood I lived in, like, I moved when I was 13, we moved like a mile away. So I grew up in the same area. But in my first neighborhood, there was a family we became friends with. It was a mom who had gotten a divorce years ago, so she brought her 3 kids with her. And there was a guy who was just slightly older than me, a girl who was just slightly younger than me, and then another girl who was like 4 years younger. So growing up, I was decently close. Me and my older sister were decently close to this brother and sister. I was closer with the sister because the brother was a little bit of a douche. Like, he wasn't a bad dude, just like we didn't really get along that well. Mm-hmm. Like, we would hang out socially, and like when we had a sleepover, I'd technically be having a sleepover with him, and my sister would technically be having a sleepover with this other girl. But we were just all friends, and they're all mm-hmm. part of the same friend group and stuff. And I maybe had the tiniest crush on this girl when we were like 12, but from, the whole entire time we were teenagers, we were just really close friends, like family, really, because we would, be at each other's house every day, hang out all the time, like ride with each other everywhere we went. It was just that type of friendships where you just spend so much of your time together, you're basically family. And she and my mom were best friends. Or her mom, sorry, and my mom were best friends. And then the summer before I went to college, her mom died. She had breast cancer, and it was going well, but she chose some alternative treatment, and she actually died due to surgery complications. And so this girl's stepdad, like these kids, their stepdad loved them and wanted to keep them and everything, but their birth dad showed up into town. I mean, I guess rightfully so. Like, they still got along with their dad. Like, they spent the summers with him sometimes and stuff. Like, they had a decent enough relationship. Right. But he showed up into town, and they were going to go stay with him for a little bit while everything got worked out. And at the time, I didn't really think about it. I was like, oh, man, well, that all sucks. That's all happening. Like, go to the funeral, say our tearful goodbyes and whatever, and they're off. And the next time I saw her, me and the brother weren't really close at that point. Like, we still were socially, friends, but we didn't really hang out as much anymore because we both were working full time and we just didn't see each other as much. But me and the sister were still very close. And I saw her the next time at my sister's wedding 2.5 years later, but it was for literally like 30 seconds. Just kind of a me breezing past. Oh, hey, oh, shoot, we need to sit down. Oh, let's do that. And then nothing. And then the next time I saw her was 7 years after we really last saw each other, which was last fall. I was going to be going to New York City. I knew that she had moved there after college. She went to college like in Ohio or something. We never saw each other on any breaks. She moved to New York City. Honestly, I didn't even really think about her that much anymore just because there's so many friends I didn't see anymore. But she messaged me out of the blue. She saw some wedding photos from a mutual friend. I'd taken the photos. And she commented on them joking like, oh man, like I need some updated like headshots for my portfolio. You ought to come to New York City sometime. And I was like, I'm actually coming there in 3 weeks. Like it just worked out. I'd never been before. And I was going with some other wedding photographers to go to a photography expo or tech expo. And she was like, oh, well, holy crap. We got to see each other then. I was like, yeah, I guess we should. And we made plans. We were going to meet at like the corner of whatever and whatever. That's the only way to meet people in New York, as far as for an idiot like me. So
at the tall building, which one?
So I was standing at this corner at the right time waiting, and then it like hit me. I saw her walking across the intersection, and I was like, "Who is that?" And it like this shocked my head. I was like, "She's an adult." And she was walking across the intersection to me. And I remember thinking, I don't even know who this is anymore. Like, we saw each other and we gave each other a hug, like, hey, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. But like the thought that was just pounding in my head was, I don't know what the first thing about this person.
Right.
Like, and so we just hung out for a little while and caught back up and everything. And the whole time it felt like anytime we were talking about, the good old days, it was like we're talking about two different people who lived in a totally different place in a totally different time. Because we had a lot of the same stories, but so much had changed for each of us that we were two totally different people than we were back then. And so all those shared stories and shared experiences were kind of cool, but they didn't really mean anything anymore. Like we had lots of history, but that was it.
It's almost like talking about a movie you've both seen.
Exactly. It was just like that.
Like you have no real connection with the characters anymore.
She'd be like, oh, what's so-and-so up to? Last I heard of them, I was like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, all right, well, you know nothing. Like, actually, no, they married so-and-so and moved to here, and I haven't seen them in 3 years, and I have no idea what's going on. And they're like, oh, okay. That was unexpected. But, like, it was just so weird. And it felt good, though, when I got home after the trip. I was just like, it felt like much needed closure. Like, I wish I could have that with all of those friends now. Because, like, now we actually are kind of friends again. We're new friends now.
Right.
And that was just such a bizarre, surreal experience that I wish more people got the opportunity to go through because, like I said, the closure was so good. A type of thing like, I don't know if we'd be that good at friends now if, we still live next to each other and stuff just because we're so different.
Right.
But as far as like, if we're in town, we'll go say hey to each other or whatever. Yeah, we're friends again. And I wish there's a couple friends. There's even actually two brothers who were in my neighborhood growing up same neighborhood. They're not on Facebook. I literally can't find them. And they were two of my best friends when I was like ages, 6 to 12 when they moved away. And I literally can't, I wouldn't even recognize them on the street now.
That brings me to a thought that if you ever want to keep in contact with somebody, like give them an email address, like before you leave, give them like every piece of contact information you have, or make sure you get the same thing. Because I mean, there are people that, my roommate from my first year away at college, I have no clue where he's at now. Like he's not on Facebook. He's not, no social media presence. So like trying to catch back up and going through mutual friends saying, hey, do you know how to get a hold of so-and-so? Like, I think he's here, but I don't know his phone number. You can literally just never see a person again. So if like someone is something, important to you, you got to at least build that little
don't assume
paper trail.
Don't assume it's always going to be like that, because it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's not anyone's fault. Like it's just life happens, and you don't realize that you're not in touch anymore until later, and you're like, oh crap. Like it's easy for it just to slip away from you.
I mean, we live in a world where people move around. I mean, we live in a country that people move from state to state based on, whatever job they want or whatever social or, whatever kind of climate they want to be in. And so it's nobody's fault that two people that were really good friends live in different areas now. I mean, it's just their life choices. But, it's easy to just take for granted that, oh yeah, I'm moving away. I'll miss you. You're a great friend. Like, I want to find out what they're up to. I have no clue how to find them now. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So as we end, final thought here, would you say life is better than you thought it would be, worse than you thought it would be, or so different that you're not even really sure it compares?
So different that I would definitely say it doesn't compare.
Yeah. I would say general quality of life is better, but as far as my ideas of what life would be like, so different that, I have no idea.
Yeah. And with that, stay confused.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.